Live from the Emerald City in Seattle, Washington, the UFO Bigfoot Paranormal spot of the Pacific Northwest, coming directly to you, listening in around the world. This, my friends, is Spaced Out Sunday. I'm your host, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer, occupying the captain's chair tonight for SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show, including all of our listeners on the digital site at Revolution Radio. And don't forget, you can always find archive shows for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do us all a favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping at our Spaced Out Radio store, and catching up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire, and so much more. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by donating to Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. And happy Valentine's Day, everyone. 2021. This is February 14th already. I can't believe it. Oh my, the new year is marching forward. And out here in the Pacific Northwest, we are covered in snow, about 2 feet of snow, which is very unusual for the Seattle area. And of course, it's blanketing the entire state. We'll find out from Peter Davenport over in eastern Washington how much they have gotten accumulated as well. And our main guest for tonight's show is a return favorite of ours, Rick Osman, is going to be back on the show talking about the paranormal of all sorts tonight, this Valentine's Day show. So kick back, relax, enjoy yourself, hunker in here by the fire with us, and we'll get started in just a moment. First of all, let's bring in Peter Davenport, see if Peter's on the line.
Good evening, Michael. I'm here.
Wonderful, Peter. Thank you for joining us again today on Spaced Out Sunday. And Rick Osman, are you there, buddy? All right. Yeah, periodically you and I will just kind of listen to see what Peter's got to do. You can kind of rest here for the first segment of the show yourself, Rick, but I thought I'd at least introduce you again because you probably know Peter just as well as any of us and stuff. Peter, what's the weather like out there in eastern Washington, if you can give us the report?
Well, it's so cold that I'm admiring that simulated campfire on your screen, your monitor there, Michael. That's particularly welcome tonight. It is brutally cold out here. I've lived here in this house I'm in for 10 years. Thursday night was the first time that my pipes froze.
Oh my!
So really cold.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. What a hassle that would be. I would imagine there was some emergency things you had to take care of immediately.
Well, I got lucky. It was a soft freeze. So I turned the hot water on and applied some heat to a few pipes, and it solved the problem. But it
oh my!
Worried.
Is that kind of a thing where out there in your hinterland you have to kind of keep some hot water run through the pipes periodically or 24 hours or whatever?
I feel like a fool. I should have known that. I've advocated that day, but I just didn't do it Thursday night when I went to bed.
Yeah.
So.
And obviously, Rick, I don't know what the weather is like in your neck of the woods. You might want to give us a report as well.
Sure. When I got up this morning, it was 7 degrees above zero.
7? Oh
and
my!
by the time I got up in the horses, it was 6 degrees above zero.
Oh my! And where's that? Where are you located at right now?
Southwestern Indiana.
Southwestern Indiana. Oh my goodness. And I'll bet the.
Yeah, we have about 4 inches of snow on the ground and expecting another 8 to 11 over the next 15 hours.
Yeah. And Peter, what are you expecting?
Well, I don't know for the little dwarf I'm in, but Spokane is predicting 9 to 10 inches overnight. So
Yeah.
one of the rare instances when I think your weather is worse than ours is, Michael. You're west of the mountains. Usually it's lighter snowpack over there.
It is, but I'll tell you what, it's 2 feet and drifting higher than that in the Seattle area. Of course, Seattle, as we all know, is built on a series of hills, and the entire downtown area is just shut down. No one's hardly going, and not even the buses are moving.
Why?
Yeah.
This is one instance when I'm pleased that I moved from Seattle out to Eastern Washington.
Yeah, at least hopefully you don't have to worry about so much traffic and dealing with so many people, because when there's too many people in this kind of a thing, people get a little crazy out here. But let's not take up too much of your time here, Peter, for the first segment. I'm sure you have some interesting last minute or up-to-date UFO reports that we can share.
I sure do. It's been really a busy week, but turns out that most of the reports I've received are reports of overflights of Starlink satellites. And on Wednesday morning, I think Wednesday morning, that's what's being reported by the newspapers in Florida. There was a launch of a submarine-launched ballistic missile test-fired on, I think, Thursday morning. And it's generated a great many reports. First report I'd like to share with our audience is from the 6th of February, last Saturday, 2307 hours, that's 11:07 p.m., in Vancouver, Washington, over near your neck of the woods, Michael.
Yeah.
A young woman describes how she and her husband were looking out a window of their home, and they saw, she asserts, a glowing orb about, she estimated, 500 feet distant from their house, looking to the east from their home in Vancouver. Again, that's Washington, not British Columbia. And they were both enthralled by it because it was moving very abruptly and very erratically. And at one point it shot up vertically at very great speed. And she goes on to describe that both she and her husband have almost 30 years experience in the aviation business, so they're well accustomed to dealing and viewing aircraft. And they both have flight training. And her husband is a forward air controller in the U.S. Air Force. So they have considerable experience in looking at objects in the nighttime sky. And they were left flabbergasted by this. They estimated that the object was something like 20 to 30 feet in diameter. And the last comment she makes is that car horns were going off in their neighborhood concomitant to the appearance of this strange sphere. What it was, I have no idea.
Oh, that's an interesting ground effect that Ted Phillips would be proud of, for sure. The gentleman who had now passed away, but researched many of the ground trace effects of UFOs, would be jumping all over that. The idea that electromagnetic effects of UAP have been manifested by car alarms. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting report,
and indeed, Peter, if they're coming from the idea that this was east of Vancouver, they're talking towards the Mount Adams general area. I don't know how far away it was from Vancouver, but that's a hot spot down there as well.
They estimated it was relatively close, within a few hundred yards of it. But
yeah.
the point I often make and like to make is that it's very difficult, borderline impossible to look at an object at night particularly, although it applies during the daytime hours as well. And if you don't know the size of the object ahead of time, to know how far away from you it is, it's just very difficult to tell how far away a light is.
Yeah. Yeah, with no reference like that. And they're saying that this thing was quite large. Either it was very close or it was very large, one of the two.
Yeah. Yeah, it was quite an interesting sighting. Another sighting that I'd like to share comes from the 9th of February. I think that was Tuesday of this week. And this is the type of report that causes a UFO investigator to tear his hair out by the roots from frustration, because it sounds like a description of a missile launch, alluding back to the test launch I talked about a moment ago off the coast of Florida. That was the 10th. This sighting is the witness asserts that this sighting occurred at 18:31 or 6:31 p.m. on Tuesday night. So she describes it beautifully. She's very eloquent, very literate. She describes it as a white cylindrical object with a rounded nose that she saw from an airliner as they started their descent into Norfolk, Virginia. They were just a minute or two from landing when she saw this object. And she writes that the crew was mystified by it too, the airliner crew, pilot and first officer. They apparently had seen it. She communicated with them. They had no idea what it was either. But it moved across the sky, she writes, with a swirling haze behind it. She has pictures. I'm going to request pictures from her. And it was moving, she says, parallel to the ground. The thing that confuses me is the missile launch is reported by local newspapers as having occurred on the 10th, but her sighting was on the 9th. Very frustrating, too.
Well, and you think that they would not be launching a missile anywhere near a commercial airliner. Oh, my.
One would think, although there have been a number of submarine-launched missiles in both the Pacific, near San Diego, and near the Atlantic, I think near Cape Canaveral. During my tenure as director of the National UFO Reporting Center. So what I think they do is put out notice to airmen and I guess take their chances.
Now, where did you say this missile was sighted?
Norfolk, Virginia.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And it was headed north. It's another thing that perhaps it's a second missile launch. But the missile launch on the 10th of February, I think went southeast down to the mid-Atlantic. So,
yeah.
Anyway, I call that to the attention of our listeners. I may be able to update them after I've corresponded with witnesses a little more extensively.
And that would be an interesting one to actually get a copy of the photo and kind of show what that looks like, and or if the witness would be willing to be interviewed on our show at one point. My gosh, wouldn't that be interesting to talk with someone that saw that?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about these cases again after I have a little more information. I haven't corresponded with either of the sources of these two reports. But I have a report from this morning, the 14th of February, Alliance, Nebraska. And I'm a little uncertain about this. This is yet another case in which I haven't corresponded with the source of the report yet, so I don't know if it's a hoax or what, but He asserts that at 3 o'clock in the morning near Alliance, Nebraska, he was driving in a snowstorm and he was suddenly blinded by an intensely bright white light, so bright that it caused him to raise his left arm to shield his eyes from it. He was so intrigued by what he had seen, he pulled off the highway and stopped his car, and he saw an object, a discrete object. He estimated that it was 600 feet diameter and 900 feet above him. That makes for a very large object. So I would take those estimates with a grain of salt for the time being. And an object just hovered above his car like a Christmas ornament, he described it. And it was dark after the intensely bright light had been switched off. He could see a dark object that was lined with a couple rows of dim yellow lights around the middle, he says. So it's an anonymous report. I'm unable to get back in touch with him. And that always makes me a little apprehensive, a little hesitant to bring a case like this to an audience. But it's so well written that I thought I would share it.
Yeah, my goodness. This is a blinding snowstorm in a, it sounds like it was a round craft or some kind of a circular craft, 600 feet in diameter. Oh, my.
Yeah. And that is only an estimate, of course. But,
yeah. That's
a well-written report, so I tend to place a priority on well-written reports. They're usually submitted by somebody who's at least paying attention to submitting a nicely crafted report.
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine after a while, you kind of get a feel of whether people are pulling your leg on some of these or whether they're serious or not.
And I have a good report I'd like to share. This one, also like the last one I just talked about, is from this morning, from today. This is February 14th, 6:57 p.m., Folsom, Pennsylvania. So within the last 6 or 7 hours, a woman writes that she saw 2 intensely bright glowing fireballs. She estimated their altitude at 1,600 feet, one behind the other, nose to tail formation, and she estimates they were flying at 300 miles an hour. They were in, she describes that the formation was unwavering. They were nose to tail, and these don't appear to be the overflight of the Starlink satellites that I've reported so often. But she checked her phone to see whether they could be aircraft. She subscribes to an aircraft identification program.
Yeah.
And there were no aircraft in the area. Also, she's a drone pilot, and she says she could hear no sound, and their flight characteristics were like nothing she's ever seen before.
Oh, my.
That was again this morning.
Oh, that's interesting that she is a, the FAA certifies drone pilots nowadays and gives out licenses for that. They have to pass a test and know all the rules and regulations. So that shows that she's got some skill there as far as, aeronautics goes for sure. And she obviously can determine if that was drones are pretty noisy. You probably would understand if it was a drone or something.
Yeah. Anyway, very nice report, and she has me pretty convinced that she saw something unusual. And just tonight, I received a report, I think from Portland. A gentleman saw something very similar, although the light he saw was one of these orange lights that I've reported on your program so often. He saw a distinctly orange, very bright light moving from the southwest to northwest sky. And I haven't received his written report yet, but he was very convincing, very sincere, and serious-minded caller. So,
Oh my! You know these things happen so often. As far as anomalies like this, Peter, you would think that NORAD would have red flags going off all the time. I would imagine you know what their capabilities are, and you would think that they probably know what's happening as well.
I suspect they do. And a lot of other investigators feel the same way, of course. Why our government is not sharing this information with us, God only knows. And it's not just the Air Force. I would like to say the fact that the Navy, U.S. Navy, had a surveillance system to defend the southern tier of the United States. The Air Force, it's my understanding, defends the northern tier from any kind of incursion from the north. The Navy was assigned the responsibility of defending the southern border from any incursion from the south. And they used the Naval Space Surveillance System. And I can't imagine how many anomalous targets that radar system must have picked up over its lifetime from probably the mid or late 50s to just a few years ago when they disassembled it. They're building its replacement, by the way, Michael, out on the Pacific Island. I presume they assume that there's a great likelihood or the greatest likelihood of an incursion from the south would come from nations to the west of us.
Oh, very interesting. Yeah, and you would imagine that you can imagine they've got satellite-based sensors and all that stuff nowadays as well that are highly sensitive and picking up stuff all the time. And of course, then again, there's your passive radar system that you created the white paper for decades ago that the Pentagon confirmed with you would actually work. So you would think they probably have that as well.
Yeah. In fact, the Naval Space Surveillance System, and people can find it on the internet with a simple search, uses passive radar system, which is using commercial radio stations and listening for reflected signals from targets in the near-Earth environment, not just in the atmosphere, but out in orbit as well. So
yeah. Oh my. Well, we want to.
Might I interject on that for just a minute?
Yeah, go ahead.
What you just described is the same thing we saw in The Dark Knight with Batman and all the cell phones in whatever it was, Shanghai, I think.
Oh, interesting.
Technology works, and it probably should be illegal, but it should be illegal for general use by other entities. The armed forces are using it to protect us from, I guess, us and whatever else might be out there.
Yeah.
But the technology is so expansive that they have to watch, of course, all of space. The idea of how to do it using, like you say, commercial radio waves has been co-opted before. And I'll give you one very prime example. During the first Iraq War, the armed forces of the United States, Britain, Australia, Canada, all of them, they were, and this was after the actual conflict, this was the enforcement part that happened later. They were being lit up by microwave emitters as if they were going to be fired on with missiles. And they would fire in response a homing anti-radiation missile or a harm. It cost roughly $500,000 piece. What these Iraqis were doing, however, was they were taking $69 Walmart variety microwave ovens, taking the doors off of them and lighting them up. and that's all it took.
Wow.
So just it's a bait and switch kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's what I think some of the sightings are that the Navy, actually, we don't know what these are. The 97 turns. I don't think there was actually an object there. It's what I call a sprite, but it's basically a hologram.
Your point's well taken, Rick. In fact, it may go back a little further. The British used a passive radar in 1980 in the Blitz. They set listening
Absolutely.
and used the radio signal from BBC to illuminate aircraft to the south of England, and that is how they were able to guide the British fighters to their German targets. So,
oh my,
Yes.
that is great history, you guys. I think it's fantastic. I never heard of that as it deals with the idea that these things could be different things rather than UFOs as well.
yeah.
Well,
I'm not saying what generates those sprites. I have no idea. But
yeah, right.
there's no physical object required.
Wow, good job, Rick. Listen, we got to take a break, you guys, at the bar hour here. And we got to bid farewell to Peter real quick. Let's have Peter give out the hotline phone number and the National UFO Reporting Center for folks.
Thank you, Michael. I'll do it quickly. The hotline telephone number is area code 206-722-3000. 206-722-3000. And our written follow-up report is UFOcenter.com.
Wonderful. Peter, thank you so much for a really informative report tonight. And Rick, thank you for your input as well. We'll be right back with more Spaced Out Sunday after this.
Hey, Spaced Out Radio fans. It's John Resnick, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. Our goal is to make the life of veterans, first responders, and those rare medical conditions 10% We do this by donating one grant item, ranging from dance and therapy programs to prosthetic limbs, to those who need it most. To contribute to Spaced Out Radio's official charity, head over to chivecharities.org and become a donor today.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do?
Why not get Bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblelicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajanas.com.
At SpacedOutRadio.com, we are keeping you up to date on all the news with the SOR Newswire. Captain Shirk leads the team that is bringing you the news of the day and exclusive stories on everything paranormal and supernatural. It's free to read, it's updated daily, and it's right there for you. The SOR Newswire is a one-stop shop for the news of the day. Check it out at SpacedOutRadio.com today.
Are you looking for great advertising value for your company? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. We have a multitude of places to get your name out there, including commercial ads during the show, special promotions, and banners on our website. Our audience is proven to support the companies that support our show. We can make your budget work for you. For more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com. Are you addicted to the woo?
Good. Me too. This is Dave Scott, and you can woo it up with me every Monday through Friday, starting at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, for 3 hours of great entertainment in the subjects you love. UFOs, ghosts, cryptids, intuition. Yes, we hit it all 5 days a week. Look for us at spacedoutradio.com, where together, my friends, we own the night.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between. Great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
Need that weekend supernatural fix? Look no further than Spaced Out Saturday, right here at spacedoutradio.com. I'm Stacey Edwards.
And I'm John Edwards. Each Saturday night, Stacey and I are going to bring you the best of paranormal, cryptids, UFOs, you name it, and we're going there.
It's all about the experience and to share the knowledge with all of you.
So tune us in every Saturday night on Spaced Out Saturdays, starting at 9:06 p.m. Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Guthrie, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world. Relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Cold drinks, great food, and the best music in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is the place to be, open until 2 a.m. nightly. Everything on the menu starts at just $6.95. Who serves food that cheap anymore? At the Moose, you'll never know who you'll run into. Rock stars, actors, athletes. It's the place everyone wants to be. So join us at the Moose Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hello everyone, this is Ryan Stacey from the Experiencers Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We're glad to team up with Spaced Out Radio to help investigate your experiences on the SOR Sightline Report. Together, we'll investigate the strange sightings and occurrences you've had. We're looking for answers just like you. So fill out the Sightline Report on the Spaced Out Radio website and let's figure out what's going on together.
Rick Osman is interested in a wide variety of the paranormal topics, including why Bigfoot is so good at avoiding cameras and night vision equipment. Why is the U.S. Navy's Tic Tac UFO video release a mixed bag? And why does the Earth and the planets in our solar system have hollow cores? And what does that mean to us? Or how about how ancient people were actually able to send long and detailed messages without runners or wires over very long distances in near real time? These and many other paranormal topics are what we will be discussing tonight with our guest Rick Osman on Spaced Out Sunday. Hey Rick, welcome back.
Hi Michael, how are you?
I'm doing great, buddy. Happy Valentine's Day, by the way.
And to you too.
I
have a mad dog, an unlatched barking dog. He's mad at something. I'm going to try to quieting down. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. No problem at all.
I'm interested in all those things, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I know you are.
Where would you like to start?
Well, you know what I always like to do is give everybody a little bit of a thumbnail sketch of who you are and how you became interested in all this paranormal. You know, the first thing that people always ask me when I go on as a guest on their shows is like, how did you get interested in these weird subjects like the paranormal? So I always like to ask my guests to kind of come up with a little thumbnail of their background, if you might want to do that for us.
Let's see. Wow.
Well, first of all,
1968 was Blue Book Project, and I got started in that. I was 14 years old.
Oh, there you go.
And there were all kinds of sightings in this area. I grew up in Frank Edwards country.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, it was kind of like hometown stuff. And then the same thing with the ancient history stuff. At about the same age, I got connected with a couple of old geezers in this little town where I grew up, and they were talking about the ancient fortresses that appear across Indiana. And I thought, yeah, right, okay. And then I started finding them. With the Indiana Historical Society and all these other organizations had documented two of them very, very meticulously. And then about, let's see, it would be 9, 10, 11 years ago, I found a third one.
A third historical site?
No, a third site.
Yeah.
The Historical Society, nobody else has ever found these things. The other 8 or so that exist.
Oh, I see.
And I'm up to 3 more now, maybe 4.
Oh, my goodness.
And they're in a pretty good straight line. And the distance between them is about 10 miles each. So this goes back to a whole bunch of different things. How far can heavy infantry march in a day? How far can reflected sunlight cast a signal?
Oh.
And how far apart can they be that they can be resupplied and reinforced in a single day? So this all adds up pretty well.
So you're saying that maybe each one of those factors are about 10 miles? Is this what you're thinking?
Yes.
I think that's
they are about 10 miles.
That's fascinating to me that you could reflect light, for instance, a signal system from the sun 10 miles. That's a long distance.
Oh, that's not no place close to a record. That's just the rule of thumb.
I see.
And that's using a 10-inch. That's a 10-inch round mirror. This is the U.S. Army's version. 10-inch round mirror, 10 miles apart. You can be like 97% sure that you'll get your signal through on 90% of the time. But the record single hop was 184 miles from one mountaintop to another. So
is that right? Oh my goodness, you've done some research for sure.
And it's not limited to a 10-inch modern silver mirror either. In ancient times, pretty much all of the Begadina mounds and a few of the later Hopewell mounds, the burials would have sheets of mica in there with them. And at Grave Creek, Mark Eddy's little neighborhood, there were 240 sheets of mica in one of the graves, in one of the tombs. And I believe it was a central hub of an entire network of message passage stuff.
Yeah. Now,
a true communications network.
Now, could you explain to us, for instance, obviously mica is a highly reflective rock, basically, but can you explain to us how they would actually use mica in a reflective signal process like that? What would they strap it to a larger thing, or would they just use pieces of it, or how did that work?
Well, let's put it this way. Downed pilots use one in their hand to signal to other aircraft.
Yeah.